For so long I've carried the weight of my past, crippled by burdens like stones on my back. I thought I had fallen too far from your grace, but you came and showed me the way. I was a lost soul searching, you were the ground beneath my feet. I was a blind man begging, you were the eyes so I could see. When the smoke was rising up, you were the air that I could breathe. You gave me hope, gave me something to believe. Now I'm alive and born again. Sing with me. Rescued from the grip of sin. God, your love came crashing in and pulled me out of the fire. I'm a survivor. Oh, now all I can see are the fields of your grace. Wherever I run, you're leading the way. You shook shackles off my feet, found redemption on my knees. You gave me hope, gave me something to believe. Now I'm alive and born again, rescued from the grip of sin. God, your love came crashing in and pulled me out of the fire. I'm a survivor. Oh, I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor. All right, sing this part with me. You're my God. You're my God. You're my fighter. You're my fighter. You make me a survivor. Come on, you're my God. You're my fighter. You make me a survivor. One more time. Oh, and you're my God. And you're my fighter. You make me a gives up, never runs out on me. Sing it out. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on. One more time. Your love, it never runs out on me. Your love.
Hi, and welcome to Salem Church Online. I'm Joey Bluegee. I'm glad you're joining me tonight as we start a 4-week series on the book Simplify by Bill Hybel. In this book, we're going to talk about what it's like to, instead of live life at full throttle all the time, instead of living life at the red line and constantly being exhausted, constantly feeling like we have no margin in our life, constantly feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, and overscheduled. Instead of that, this next 4 weeks we're going to talk about what it's like to simplify, to take things back just a little bit, to leave margin in our lives, to leave space for things we love to do, people we want to spend time with. That's where we're going in this next 4 weeks. And my hope is that you will join me as we're on a journey together. Because like I'm going to tell you in this first week right now, is I've learned a lot, and I'm hoping that you learn as much as I have. This has been very impactful going through this. So, before we start tonight, I'd just love to pray for our evening, and then we'll dive right into week 1. Father God, I just thank you for life that you've given us. God, for the grace you bless us with. Lord, for the joy that you've made us to have. God, life can get really busy sometimes. Life can feel like it's out of control. Life can feel like we're on a constant wheel like a hamster. While we keep running, we never make any progress. So God, tonight I pray that you'd help us to start to understand what it's like to live life as you intended. To simplify it a little bit. And Lord, that we would grow together. And tonight, Lord, that instead of focusing all the time on what it is we need to get done, we'd focus instead on who you want us to become. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So tonight, we're talking about this idea of, instead of what is it that I have to get done all the time. That's oftentimes how I look at my schedule, and I think many of us look at our schedules. Instead of always thinking like, who is it that I want to become? What is this schedule leading me to do? It's, well, I got to check this off, I got to check this off, I got to check this off, and boom, 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 hey, I checked my day off, and that's great. And there's a great thing about that accomplishment, to be able to finish tasks that we've been given, to be able to be productive, because work is something that God's gifted us with. Work is not a sin, it's a gift that God gave us. Even in the garden before the fall of man, God gave Adam things to do, to work. And so work is something that's good. God created it to be good. But what happens is we oftentimes go to the extreme. We hit the red line, we push things too far, and we lose sight of what's important in life. We lose sight of the joy. And we lose sight of the good things that God has given us. So tonight, week 1 is all about, rather than what I can get done, it's about who am I becoming. I want to cover 3 things tonight. The first thing is the idea of a bucket. Am I filling my bucket, or is my bucket running out? The second thing I want to cover is harnessing the power of your schedule, of my schedule. How do we take control of our schedules? And how, finally, the third thing, when we talk about that, we go to, then who is it I want to become, rather than what is it that I have to get done. So to start tonight, if you had a chance, I hope that you were able to watch the video before this by Bill Hybel. There's a video for each of these weeks online at Right Now Media. Now, if you didn't get the invitation last week, or you didn't have a chance to watch the video, over in the Notes tab, right to the right of the screen, you'll see an invitation link right there. Salem Lutheran Church gifts you with the ability to use Right Now Media, and my hope and prayer is that you would use that not just for this study, but beyond it. And so click on that invitation, sign up for Right Now Media, and then you'll be able to see a 4-week series called Simplify. So each week before we get to this study, I hope that you'll have time to watch those videos. They're anywhere from 18 minutes to 23, 24 minutes, somewhere in there. And so you can watch the video first, and then that'll lead into what we discuss the following Tuesday evening. So for the week 1 video, Bill had a couple different stories that happened in it. The first one was with his daughter, Shauna. And so she asked him the question when she was 3 years old. She said, just innocently, "Dad, are you going to be gone again tonight?" That was a wake-up moment for Bill. Now, I have not had that experience in my own life without having any kids right now. But I've had wake-up calls like that before. The situation that I thought of was there was a time right after we got married that I liked to go to work at 7 and oftentimes would get done about 6 or 7 in the evening. And there was one morning Catherine asked me, she said, "Why do you go in so early? What is it that you have to get done?" And I told her, well, I was just bored, so I want to go to work, get some productive stuff going, get moving on the day, and forge ahead. In that moment, she encouraged me, maybe do something different. Spend some time doing some joy, have some things that are fun in the morning, or things that are going to help fill my bucket that we're going to dive to here in a little bit. One of those things was exercise. And let me tell you, ever since I've started doing more of that and spending more time on things I love, like maybe it's reading or maybe it's exercise, not saying I don't love work, it's not that at all. But now that I'm taking time outside of work to do stuff that's filling my bucket, it's amazing the joy you start to discover when you simplify your life. So that's the first concept I want to talk about tonight, is replenishing your energy reserves. Bill mentioned a deadly pattern that he noticed. He said that far too many people live exhausted, overwhelmed, and overscheduled lives. When you find yourself suffering from these feelings, which of the following triggers is usually to blame? Now, there's 4 of them that he points out in the book, and that is in the workbook right here. One of those points is fear. Fear is you're afraid to say no to your boss or your spouse or children, and thus you take on more than you can do. Second one is overachievement. You derive a disproportionate amount of self-worth from achieving more than you did last week or more than what others are achieving. Third one is guilt. You're worried that if you do something for yourself instead of remaining constantly available to everyone else, you might be judged unfavorably. Or is there something else? Something else that relates to you? Speaking from my point of view, mine is fear. Mine is fear that if I don't push harder, if I don't deliver, if I don't accomplish what I've been asked to do, then people will look upon me unfavorably. And that's something that I've had to wrestle through and have to work through. I have to get past the point of always feeling like I have to say yes to every single commitment. Yes, you don't want to be a person that always turns down everything that says, well, it's not my job, so I'm not going to do it. I don't want to be that type of person, and I don't think any of us want to be that type of person. But what I've started to discover is there are some things that you have to say no to. Some things that are good things, but you have to say no to them just because you don't have time in your schedule. That it's going to run you at the red line too much. That's going to leave you no margin for something that's important to you in life. And so what is it for you? Is it fear, like I have? Is it overachievement, that you're always pushing to achieve over somebody else or over another season in your life? Is it guilt that others are going to look down upon you? Or is there something else? Love to hear your responses in the chat and see what it is that drives you sometimes to push a little harder and instead of simplifying your life. Bill talks about the concept of a bucket this week. He uses this concept a lot in his teaching. Now, he draws a bucket. I've got mine right here on a piece of paper. I drew mine this week. And the idea of the bucket is to see where you're at. with your energy reserves? Are you at 100%? If you're living 100%, you are doing a great job filling your bucket. Most of us don't live at that level. Are you below 50% right now? Are you giving out more than you're filling up? So is your energy reserve depleting? The idea of a bucket is to make a column on each side of it. And I found this very, very beneficial for myself because, for instance, when I had to put left side of the bucket, I drew a column that says, what fills me? So what is it that puts energy into me in life? On the right side of my bucket, I put what depletes me. What is it that drains my bucket that I have to give to and it doesn't always replenish back? I'll give you some examples of what fills me. I wrote devotion time, exercise, baking's one of mine, mowing the lawn, grocery shopping. So I have some odd ones on my list, I know that, but they're things that fill me up. Like, I love to exercise. Mowing the lawn, it can feel like a chore, but to me, when I'm sitting on the mower and I'm just 2 hours listening to some music or something like that on the mower, that's relaxing to me. And so I look forward to mowing the lawn. It's something that fills me up. On the other side, I would love for you to draw a bucket yourself and see what is it that fills you, what is it that takes away from your energy, and how full is your bucket right now? Are you at 50%? Are you above 50%? Are you below 50%? Where are you at? Look at the column of what fills you. I'd love for you to be able to take some time to do that. Like some of mine, for instance, I go back to the mowing the lawn example. Some things I get to do every week or every other week because it has to be done, but yet it fills me up. Some things, for instance, I made I have baking on my list. Now, I don't bake all the time, but this last weekend there was a moment where I was feeling a little more pressure, and so what did I do? I went and baked some pumpkin cupcakes just because it's something I love to do. It's enjoyment in being able to do that, and I think for me it's a sense of accomplishment of seeing a finished product at the end. You put all these ingredients together and at the end you get a beautiful product. Well, most of the time you get a beautiful product. I've had those moments where I haven't followed the directions quite as much as I should. But, so I look forward to things like that. When you look at the other side of your column that says, what is it that takes energy away from you? Some of those things we just have to do. Some things that we have to do for chores, we don't like to do them, but we have to do them. Some things that we do at work, they're not our favorite thing to do, but we have to do them. And so there's always going to be things that are adding to your bucket and taking away from your bucket. We're going to have those things in life. But what we want to focus on is how, when we start to feel our bucket giving out more and more and more, we need to look at our left side of the column and see what fills us and take some time to do that. So I'd encourage you to do that. Do it right now during this Bible study or do it right after this. And look what fills it, what depletes it, where you're currently at. And maybe this week try to see what one activity you can do to fill your bucket. Bill asked the question in the workbook like this. He says, what price have you paid along the way as the result of living less than a full bucket? What do you lose? A few examples that I wrote down is inner peace, restlessness. When I miss out on my exercise time, I feel a lot less energetic for the day. I feel like I haven't started my day off right, and so it drains me a bit. Another thing that I've noticed that I lose is prayer time with God. Something that I love to do. I love to talk with God. But in times when I'm pushing so hard, trying to accomplish tasks, trying to check off boxes, I realize that sometimes God gets put off to the side. And so I hate losing that time. It's something I don't look forward to. And so when my bucket starts to drain and when I start to lose those things, there's times where I can not be as happy, as positive as I want to be. And at those moments, people notice. And that's when I need to go back to my other side and say, what is it, Joey, that I can do right now and fill my bucket up and refill back to where I was. In the book, Bill talks about 5 things that he does to fill his bucket. Maybe some of these relate to you. Some of them did relate to me. 1 was connection with God. 2, family. 3, satisfying work. 4, recreation. And 5, exercise. I'm going to list these 5 in the notes column to the right so you can see them there. And I encourage you to rank them. If any of these 5 speak to you, if all 5 speak to you about something that fills your bucket, make a list of priority. Which one's the top one in your life? So for instance, my number 1 stream of replenishment to fill my bucket up is recreation. I love to do stuff that's fun, activities that just give me a chance to unwind, to reset my mind, and to be able to enjoy what God's given me. So rank them in the column on the side and see which one is the most important to you. So the last one, when you're depleted, which of these activities tends to refill your bucket most efficiently? So that's just what I talked about. When you're depleted, look at this week. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, overscheduled, look at these this week. And if your number 1 is family, make time to have a date night with your wife. Make time to spend time with your kids. Make time to call a parent on the phone. Anything like that. That will help to refill your bucket. The second part that I want to cover in Who Do I Want to Become Tonight is this idea of harnessing the power of your calendar. Let me tell you, when I was in college, I somewhat kept a calendar, but I didn't do it much. But what I've realized probably in the last 6 months, because even when I started work, I didn't harness my calendar's power as much as I should. In the last 6 months, I've noticed what a difference that can make by owning your calendar instead of letting it own you. It's just amazing. It's amazing what happens when we start to make our calendar work for us rather than being slaves to our calendar. I love this. So the example that Bill talks about, he talked about this in the video, he talks about it in the book, in the workbook. Here's the thing. We all have calendars in our lives. And oftentimes when we sit down, we make our calendar, we write out, it's all about, okay, I have to do this. I have to do this activity. Well, I got this next week. Well, I've got an appointment here. I've got this, and the list goes on and on and on, and we start to see, wow, where are the gaps in my calendar? What Bill encouraged me to do in this book, and I hope this is an encouragement to you as well, is to make personal appointments in your life, personal things that are very important to you, as important as what's on your work calendar. In the story about when his daughter Shauna asked him at 3 years old, "Dad, are you going to be gone again tonight?" That hit him hard. And what he said was, he listened for the Holy Spirit's guidance on how he should construct his calendar. And just kind of, God, how many nights a week should I stay home? Should I be at home so I could be with my family? What he came to feel the leading on was that he should stay home 4 nights a week. That he should block 4 nights out. So what he did with his calendar was he literally took his calendar, and on 4 of the nights he wrote home, 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 home. He wrote those on 4 nights so that they were blocked as if they were as important as a meeting he'd have to have. That's what he felt. Now 4 is not a magic formula number by any mean, but that's what he felt was necessary for him. What he felt God's leading was for him. 4 might not be the number for you for the nights that you have to be home. You may be someone that has to travel a lot. You may be someone that is busy, and that's not what you're being led to do in this season of life right now. Maybe you're being led instead to 2 nights is where you're at in this season of life. And if God leads you to say, well, I have no nights right now and I moved to 2 nights at home, hey, that's great. Four is not the magic number by any means. But where is it that God is leading you to make more time for who is important in your life, or for activities for what is important in your life? I'll give you an example of where I've gone since I've started preparing for this study. So one thing that I wish I would have done sooner that I didn't is now I blocked a night on my calendar each week to where I have a date night with my wife. And so that doesn't always mean we go out to a movie, we go out to a restaurant, stuff like that. It may mean we stay home and we cook together. We've done that before. It may mean that we, read something together or watch a Red Box at home. We go for a walk together. We don't necessarily go out every single evening, but instead we make sure that that night is blocked off, that we spend time together, however that may be. And so that's one way that I have just noticed a difference that it's made in our lives together. It's given us the ability to take what before we may have spent an hour with each other each day. Instead, now we have a blocked 2-hour time each week on Wednesday nights. Wednesday nights is ours. That's just as the night that works best for us, but we spend time together, and that's been great. Another example for me where it's been beneficial is exercise. I used to say to myself, well, I'll go exercise and I'll get this done. But then sometimes I'd be like, well, I really need to read this instead, or I could use some extra sleep here. Now, 4 days a week, I have exercise written on my calendar in the morning. It is amazing what happens when you mark something on your calendar. It gives you a lot more incentive and a lot more push to go do something. It gives you just the power to follow that much closely. Now, that's not going to say that I'm never going to miss an appointment on that, like sometimes I have to miss an appointment of something else that's on my schedule. But the chances are I'm more likely to keep that when it's blocked on my calendar. How about you? What is it that maybe you want to block on your calendar? Maybe it's time with your kids. Maybe it is exercise. Maybe it is spending more time with your wife or with your husband. Maybe it's time with friends. Maybe what's important is blocking church out in your week each week. Maybe it's blocking time for study for God's Word, for devotion time. There's a whole bunch of things that it could be. But my encouragement to you is that block those things in your calendar for things that are important. I'd love for you to be able to block these next 4 Tuesday nights in your calendar so that these next 4 nights, these Tuesday evenings, that you would just come and join me as I'm working through this, and I hope that we work through this together, is this idea of simplifying our lives. So block those 4 nights in your calendar. Going on to the third thing tonight. So we've moved from filling our bucket to harnessing the power of our calendar. And both those things lead to where we want to get to. And that's the challenge for this week. Instead of living a calendar, living a life that's always about what is it that I can get done. Instead, what does that look like? To focus on this thought. Who is it that I want to become? Who is it that I want to become? Some examples. Maybe you want to be a more present spouse. Maybe you want to be a more devoted parent. Maybe you want to be a more fiscally responsible individual. Maybe you want to be a more grateful employee. Maybe you want to be someone who can take the first stairs 2 at a time without grasping for breath at the top. Maybe you want to be less of a stranger to God. Once you have determined what kind of person you want to become, this week, evaluate your weekly calendar through that lens. As you accept commitments and create your to-do list, invite God's input by asking Him to show you how your involvements will move you closer to or further away from the person you want to become. next week, next Tuesday night, I'd love for you to be able to share with me, share with others about which replenishment streams, those were the things that fill our buckets, that you chose and your means of pursuing those. While we finish up this week, think about it all throughout this next week of who is it that you want to become? Who is God calling you to become in your life? I'd love for you to join me back here again next week, next Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, as we look at the topic of spend wisely and how to be satisfied in work and in finances. We got one more worship song for you tonight, and then I'll see you back here next week.